Today's mindful moment. We tend to think, when there's a win in the courtroom, that justice has been served, like it's the final word. But what if that win doesn't bring any real sense of closure? And that threat, that underlying tension, just hangs in the air long after the judge bangs that gavel.
That's a really interesting point. And the book you've chosen for us to discuss today, John Grisham's The Last Juror, really digs into that very idea. It's not just another legal thriller, though.
Right.
It tackles these really complex questions about what justice actually is, especially in the context of racial prejudice, which is so deeply embedded in the American South in the 1970s. And, it's also about how a community finds the strength to face those challenges head on. It's a really rich story with a lot to unpack.
For sure. And as we explore those choices, those moral dilemmas these characters face, you might find yourself thinking back to times when you had to wrestle with your own sense of right and wrong, these kind of mindful moments, if you will, where the characters, and maybe even us as readers, are forced to really look inward.
Yeah, I like that. Those introspective moments that make you pause and think.
Exactly. So let's set the stage. We're in Clanton, Mississippi, and we're introduced to Willie Traynor, a young journalist who's just bought the Ford County Times, a newspaper that's seen better days. And almost immediately, this horrible crime happens. Rhoda Caslaw is brutally murdered.
And right from the start, it's pretty clear who did it. Rhoda, with her dying breath, names Danny Padgitt as her attacker. And the Padgitts, well, they've got a reputation. They're known for being trouble.
Oh, yeah. Notorious, really.
Exactly. So it's not a whodunit. The real suspense comes from the trial itself and just the looming presence of the Padgitts, the sense of intimidation that hangs over everything.
It's palpable. And despite all that, attempts to bribe the jury, threats, they find Danny guilty. It's a testament to their bravery, standing up to that kind of pressure. But then, when Danny's given a life sentence, he drops this bombshell. He vows to get revenge on each and every juror.
Chillin', right?
Oh, absolutely. And at that time, parole was a real possibility in Mississippi. So his threat, it had teeth. It wasn't just empty words.
No, it was a very real danger. And that threat, it casts a shadow over the rest of the story. We see Willie trying to find his place in Clanton, not just as the newspaper guy, but as someone who's part of the fabric of the town. And it's through his relationships, the people he meets, that we really start to understand what Clanton is all about.
And one of the most important relationships he forms is with Miss Callie Ruffin. She's this incredible woman full of wisdom and grace who becomes the first black juror in Ford County during Danny's trial. A real turning point, I think.
Absolutely. Miss Callie, she's a force to be reckoned with. She has this quiet strength, this unshakable moral compass. She becomes a mentor to Willie, guiding him and helping him see things more clearly. And her own story, man, it's powerful. Raising 8 kids in the South during the 70s, 7 of them go on to get PhDs. That's incredible. It speaks volumes about her character, her resilience, and her belief in the power of education.
Talk about inspiring. It's a testament to the spirit of the black community. To overcome so much, to strive for something better, despite facing so much prejudice and discrimination. And Willie, maybe it's Miss Callie's influence, but he starts using the Times as more than just a way to report the news. He's using it to fight for justice, to expose corruption, to be a voice for positive change.
Yeah, he's finding his purpose. He's not just printing stories. He's trying to make a real difference. And, that theme of ethical journalism, it's central to the whole book.
It really is. But then, that threat from Danny Padgitt, it comes back in a terrifying way. 9 years go by and he's out on parole, just like people feared. Those jurors, the ones who put him away, they've been living with that knowledge that he might come after them. And then 2 of them are killed, sniped. It's a horrifying turn of events.
And naturally, everyone thinks it's Danny. He made that promise, and now it seems like he's making good on it. Grisham does a great job building the suspense, leading you down that path, but then there's this twist.
Oh, man. The rug gets pulled out from under you. It wasn't Danny after all.
Right. It turns out this guy, Hooten, was behind it all. He had this personal connection to Rhoda, and he was driven by revenge, not just against Danny, but against the jurors who didn't vote for the death penalty.
Wow.
It adds this whole other layer to the idea of justice, Hooten, he's consumed by grief and rage, and he decides to take the law into his own hands. It all culminates in this incredibly tense standoff at the courthouse where Hooten kills Danny and then himself. It's a powerful reminder of what can happen when people lose faith in the system.
It's a tragedy all around. And when you step back and look at it, there's this huge disconnect between what the legal system did paroling Danny and what feels morally right. Just because he served his time, does that mean justice was truly served?
That's the question, isn't it? And throughout the whole story, you can't escape the reality of race in the South during that era. Miss Callie being on that jury, it was a huge step forward. But the racism, the inequality, it's always there, lurking beneath the surface. And it makes her strength and dignity all the more remarkable.
Absolutely. And despite all the ugliness, the murder, the fear, the prejudice, there's this incredible resilience in Clanton. The people, they come together, they support each other, even across racial lines. It's really powerful.
I agree. And Willie's work at the Times, it shows you how important local journalism can be. He's not just reporting the facts, he's creating a space for dialogue, holding the powerful accountable, and helping to bring the community together. And his own journey. From outsider to someone who's truly part of Clanton, that's pretty cool too.
For sure. Let's do a quick recap of these characters. We have Willie Traynor, the ambitious young reporter who finds a deeper purpose in Clanton. Miss Callie Ruffin, that pillar of wisdom and moral strength. Danny Padgitt, that menacing figure who reveals just how flawed the system can be. And then there's Luton, a man driven to a tragic end by his desire for revenge.
And when you look at the themes Grisham is exploring, racial tension is front and center. Everything that happens, the characters' choices, their interactions, it's all shaped by the legacy of racism in the South. And then there's Willie's commitment to ethical journalism, using his platform to speak truth to power, which is so vital. And we see how shared experiences, both good and bad, can forge these strong bonds within a community.
Definitely. And it's interesting how many of the characters face these really tough moral choices. It's not always black and white. They're forced to make decisions in a world that's often unfair and complicated. It makes me think of those moments in stories where characters have these realizations, those internal struggles and insights that lead to growth and change, kind of like what they talk about on Mindful Moments podcasts, that AI audiobook analysis YouTube channel that breaks down those deeper meanings in literature.
Yeah, totally. Those moments can be so powerful.
So thinking about some specific things that might be on your mind, like why is Miss Callie called the Last Juror? What's the significance there?
Well, on one level, she was literally the last person selected for Danny's jury. But there's more to it than that. She represents this enduring moral force in Clanton. Her values, her perspective, they continue to influence Willie and the whole community long after the trial is over.
And what about the role of journalism itself? It feels like it does more than just move the plot along.
Right. It highlights the power of journalism to inform, to challenge corruption, and to inspire a sense of responsibility within a community. Willie's newspaper. It becomes this driving force for change, a voice for those who need to be heard.
And how does Grisham approach the issue of race in the story? It's obviously a very sensitive and complex topic.
He mostly does it through the characters themselves, their experiences and events like Miss Callie being selected for the jury. He doesn't shy away from the deep-seated racism of the time, but he also shows how people from different backgrounds can connect and make progress even in the face of those challenges.
So for those who've read other Grisham novels, how is The Last Juror different?
Well, it's still got that legal thriller element, but it's much more character-driven. It's a more thoughtful exploration of justice and community than some of his other, more plot-heavy books.
Okay, last question. What about the ending? Willie decides to sell the Times. What does that mean?
It's kind of bittersweet, isn't it? It shows Willie's success in a way. He took this struggling paper and turned it into something valuable, but it also points to how things change, even in small towns, those institutions that feel so permanent they can fade away or at least evolve as the world moves on.
It's kind of a reminder that nothing stays the same forever. So as we wrap up here, this story really makes you think about what justice actually means. Is it just a verdict in a courtroom? Or something much bigger, something that goes beyond the legal system? And how do the actions of people like Miss Callie and Willie make a difference in their community, especially when they're up against such powerful forces?
Yeah. It challenges us to think about how these themes, justice, race, community, how they still matter today, in our own lives.
For sure. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe so you don't miss our future episodes. And if you know someone who might appreciate this, please share it with them. And if you'd like to explore these ideas further, we've got a link in the show notes where you can buy The Last Juror. It's definitely worth a read.
Keep asking those tough questions. Keep digging deeper. There's always more to uncover. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Take care.